Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series on introductory syntax. Today, we're going to look at the basics of WH questions. So that's going to integrate both our head movement discussion, our A movement discussion, which is also known as DP movement, and also going to introduce the notion of either what's known as A bar movement or WH movement. So a quick reminder, we saw before how to form yes/no questions in English, and this is so a question like can John eat almonds? We would take a declarative sentence like John can eat almonds, and I'm just going to quickly draw up the tree for that. Let's see if I can get into a space where that can be done very easily. So put our can here, BP here, DP John begins in the specifier of the V eat, because it is, remember, getting that subject, that agent theta role from the verb eat, at least for now. Again, we're probably going to modify that a little bit. And then almonds is getting the theme theta role and accusative case from being in the object position of the verb. Sorry. You can see that there. So then we're going to do a couple of basic movement operations. So we'll have our to form a basic declarative. So John is in the theta position, but not in a case position. So it is going to raise into the specifier of TP. And again, it's going to do this for a couple of reasons. It's going to do this to receive nominative case. It's also going to do this to satisfy the EPP requirements of the overall sentence of the TP. And then, to form our yes/no questions, so our yes/no question is formed by saying, can John eat almonds? So the way we do that is we say, well, and I'm playing a little fast and loose. I'm leaving off some of the featural markers here, but we'd have something like a plus Q feature up in the C position, which is going to attract our can into this position. And that's how we get this. So can John eat almonds? And we can also, we could have a very similar tree, one involving do support. So if this was, does John eat almonds? The way that would work is in the basic declarative, depending on, again, on our analysis. Either T is in a selectional relationship with the lower V, or T lowers to V. But when T is attracted to C, that relationship is disrupted. So that is the basic idea there. So we're going to, again, play around with the basic structures of this, because part of our basic formation of a WH question involves the formation like a yes/no question, because this plus Q feature, this plus question feature, is involved even in the formation of a content question as well. So yes/no questions are looking for answers like yes, no, I don't know, while content questions are looking for things like actual content responses. And we're going to look a little bit at some of the various types of content responses we can get. So I want to start off Shouldn't have really even erased this, but I did. It's probably for the best. We're going to look at our, again, the same type of structure. And in this case, we're going to be not asking, can John eat almonds? But we're preparing a dinner party. We want to know, and we know that John has a lot of dietary restrictions. So we're asking our good friend Mary, well, what can John eat? So to form this, we're going to go through the same basic steps. So we're going to build our CP. It's still going to be a plus Q, but it's also going to be plus WH, because this is telling us, in this case, that it is a content question. We have our TP here. This time I'm going to be a little bit better about filling in our features. T-bar, T, so this T can has a couple of critical features here, namely it has EPP, and it also has nominative case. And then we're going to get down into here, our VP, and in the specifier of that VP, we get our DP John. And eat. And then another DP, which in this case is going to be what? And we know that this is a DP. And we can look at various types of evidence that this is a DP. We can see in a lot of different ways that this is a DP. One of the ways is that it's replacement, so it's showing up in the same types of distributional places that it's as DP, that DPs are showing up. The other way that we know it's a DP is that we can use we can have what be kind of and still have nouns there. This is a little bit better with which, but it's perfectly fine with what as well. So what grains? So what grains can John eat? If John's, I don't know, gluten-free or something, or allergic to particular grains. So these types of things are perfectly fine. And in fact, that type of expression is what's known as delinked, because it's discourse linked in some way typically. And they have different sort of semantic properties, but we don't necessarily need to get into those. They still are yes, no, or not yes, no. I keep saying that. They still are WH oriented, and they still have the same properties of the WH expressions. So what these WH expressions, at least, you know, we can get WH expressions in adjunct positions as well, but this WH here is in a argument position, it's in the object position, it's getting a theta role, the thematic theta role, and it's getting accusative case. And it needs both of those. So it's just like the almonds that we saw in the previous sentence. It's the same type of structure. John, same as before, getting a theta role from eat, and but no case. So John is as before, and I'm going to switch to red to indicate movement rather than these sort of types of agreement relations that we're seeing. So John is going to raise. I need to go to the store and buy some more markers because my red is almost dead. John is going to raise into this specifier T position. And in that position, John can satisfy the EPP and get case from T. So it gets nominative case there, so John is happy. Then we have to do another movement operation. We're going to move can from T up into C, just as we did before. So that's the same movement that we saw in moving to form a yes-no question. And that's going to satisfy, again, the plus Q feature of the overall of the C position. And then finally, we're going to grab what from down low, and we will raise it all the way into this highest position. And they will satisfy each other's WH features. And that is the derivation of the sentence, what can John eat? So, what's really cool about this structure is it makes predictions about the ways in which these can interact with each other. So one of the things that we can see is that we can get movement of these WH phrases from lower clauses. So we can say things like, what did Mary say? Should have planned the sentence before I started writing it. John could eat. Or that John could eat. And so if we look at this sentence, this has two embedded CPs. Or one embedded CP, but it has two CPs. So, and the lowest, this what is coming all the way down from this lowest CP. But this makes other predictions as well, and predictions we haven't really talked about yet, which deal with locality and movement, and sort of the ways in which features work in interaction with each other. So one thing that we can call this sentence one. So what and this relation and this sentence have sort of a relationship with each other. And we could kind of predict that one hypothesis would be that what just sort of moves all the way up, skipping over this intermediate node, this intermediate CP. It's a hypothesis we can entertain, but we can sort of explore that by looking at what would happen if we tried to do that. Well, how could we explore that? Well, we could add more WH phrases. So we could say something like, what did Mary wonder who could eat? And this sentence starts to get pretty odd. I'll admit, it's not the strangest for me, but these types of sentences undergo what's known as the satiation effect, where the more you hear them, the less and less strange they start to get. So this might, hopefully the sentence is bad for you. There might be other factors that also make it not terribly bad. But we can explore to a certain degree why this sentence isn't good. But we could even make this sentence worse. I'm going to play around a little bit more with this example. To do this, we're going to use some syntactic, a type of example that we really yet don't have the ability to capture in our syntactic architecture yet, but we will. So what did Mary say who John gave? And this is just terrible. Now, the target meaning of this is Mary said John gave Bill a book. And the goal interpretation of this is you're trying to ask the question of, so you're trying to ask, who did Mary say that John gave what? Which you can ask, but you can't ask in this way. So one of the things we can notice is that if you're going to ask that question, you have to grab who, which seems to be somewhat closer. And that is sort of the critical thing that we can notice with these question things. If there's one closer, and we'll define what that means, one higher in the syntactic hierarchy, that's the thing that has to move up. So let's look at this, what did Mary say John could eat, and how we would structure this. We'll play around again with these over the next couple videos. So this is, again, going to be a little bit more basic. So again, this is going to be a plus question plus WH. I need to just make sure I give myself enough space to draw this tree. Here we have a TP. I've already forgotten my sentence. What did Mary say? Okay. So here we're going to have just past tense. It's also going to be EPP and nominative because it is tensed. We're going to have a VP here. That VP is going to contain our DP Mary, which is going to receive a theta, not a DP containing a DP, a theta roll from the verb say, and a CP, which is receiving a propositional theta roll. Then that CP is going to branch out into the same type of structure. This is a minus question CP. We have a TP. This T contains could, VP containing VP containing eat, the specifier with John, and the DP containing what. Okay, so this is a much bigger tree. I'll hold it up to let it focus a little bit. Okay. Try to switch colors a little bit here. So to start off, we're going to have eat, and it's satisfying the theta roles of John and what. Say is satisfying the theta role of Mary and the theta role of the CP. It's also satisfying eat is satisfying the case requirements of what, but it is not satisfying the case requirements of John, and say is not satisfying the case requirements of Mary. The CP doesn't have any case requirements. Thought I had another. I need some more markers. Okay. Then we have to move stuff. So we're going to get movement of John from, this marker is dead or dying. To the specifier of TP, and this is to satisfy both the EPP and of this lower TP, which should have been marked here, but I forgot to mark it, and also to satisfy the case requirements of the DP John. I'll look for another marker real quick. Wrong box. There we go. I'm going to switch to brown. And then we're going to have the same type of requirement movement of Mary. Again, satisfying EPP and case here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to have our head movement of this past tense. We don't have any head movement down here of this T because this is not a plus question complementizer. So this could is going to stay here. It also really doesn't have a relationship with the V in any way. So there's no lowering or anything like that. So this could is fine, but this past needs to raise to this to the C, which should be right here. Notice we don't have any morphological form in this position, so that's where we're going to get our do support. So we're going to insert do and raise it up here. And it's actually going to be did because it's in the past tense. And then finally, what needs to move. And as we talked about, where it's trying to get to is this specifier position. But what we're going to see, or what we saw with those previous examples, is that it can't leave this specifier position open because this specifier position also needs to be we can't move other WH words into it later on. So what seems to be required is that it has to stop off on the way up here. And we're going to call this either cyclic movements or minimality or something along these lines. But basically the idea is that movement must occur at the most minimal distance it can. So think about it in terms of a form of sort of kind of laziness. Not quite laziness, but like you have to go on a long journey, and you're going to do it in steps. You're not going to do it all at once. So you're going to take each step one step at a time. So here's a spot you can go to. What is going to go here? Stop here, and then continue on. It will end up here, but it's going to stop in this CP. I know this tree looks pretty messy, and it's only going to get messier as we move on, but doing the best we can with the technology. So that's the basics of WH movement. We will complicate things a little bit more. I know that sounds a little scary maybe, but we'll complicate things a little bit more in our next videos. Anyway, so that's what I have for today. As always, I want to conclude the video with a couple pieces of wisdom from some great thinkers that came before us. I have 2 quotes today from different thinkers that are related, because I think right now we're in a place of sort of, again, uncertainty and fear, and these are sort of thematic quotes that deal with giving, and so I just sort of want to pull from them. So the first one is from Fred Rogers again. The real issue in life is not how many blessings we have, but what we do with our blessings. Some people have many blessings and hoard them. Some people have few and give everything away. And then the other one is from Anne Frank. No one has ever become poor by giving. Anyway, I hope everyone is safe and healthy, or as safe and healthy as you can be in these times, and continues to be well. And I will see you next time. Thank you very much.